Well, chaps, no one is here for my mush, so you'll forgive the audio nature, but what a sad and tragic few days it has been. I initially did a video to honour Miss Tanya Roberts when I heard the news Tuesday, or late on Monday anyway, that she had died, and then in the hours after that, she was still alive. And so I deleted the video, and I'd already watched Future Kill as like some kind of homage viewing to her, and thinking, well, hopefully she's going to make it. And you hear the stories all the same that she was seriously ill, and then she died last night, British time anyway. And this was a lot worse to hear than the first time round, because for a moment you're relieved that the news was wrong, and then it turns out her health was a lot more fragile than you'd hope it was. I didn't know Tanya Roberts. I never got to meet her. I didn't even exchange treats with her like other people did, but you grow up with certain things, and Future Kill was my birth year film for one thing, 1985. And in those 35 years, I've probably seen, by virtue of it being one of the few Bond films we had on tape, probably at least 3 or 4 times a year since I could remember, from when I was about 5 or 6 at any rate. The knackered tape of a late 80s broadcast of Future Kill off ITV, complete with idents, became one of the official releases. I think we got the video, late 90s or whatever, one of the ones which had a thumbnail on the spine of the cover, and then we started to get the whole collection when it had the spine, so when you put them together it had a collage. So anyway, Future Kill along with Diamonds Are Forever is probably the film I've watched the most in my life, Bond wise anyway. And Tanya Roberts, was there, obviously. Stacey, for much of her existence as a character, is derided as being a sort of an airhead blonde, screaming James a great many times, and then she's starting to enjoy in some quarters a renaissance of opinion, in that she's not as bad really as she made out. If you take her as she is, and her job, she was actually quite a serious character. Each Bond girl, or Bond girls, because you usually have more than one in a film, that help out Bond have some kind of day job or occupation. Tatiana, I can never say her name, Tatiana from Russia with Love, worked for the KGB effectively, or at least hush-hush stuff with the Russians, and Pussy Galore was Goldfinger's pilot, and piece of arm candy from the looks of it. Domino was, I suppose, Largo's child in some respects. He was her legal guardian anyway. And Tracy was the daughter of a mobster and all the rest of it. And Stacey comes along in 1985. She's a state geologist. I assume she's a state geologist working for the Californian government, or at least out San Francisco's government. Before we've met her properly, she has been intimidated by and locking horns with Max Sorin, who presumably in the couple of years up until Bond comes along, has not only been building his business empire, but has started to make overtures to Operation Mainstrike, the destruction of Silicon Valley. And part of Operation Mainstrike is Stacey's house, because it's in the way of what he intends to do or whatever. And by the time Bond turns up, she's been offered money, and I like the fact she comes all the way out to Paris to meet Sorin and to go back, and yet in theory she has next to no money, but then I guess Sorin may have paid for everything to grease the wheels. Bond comes along, and is trying to find out what Soren's up to, and meets Stacey, and he goes round to her house to talk to her under his pretense of being a Financial Times journo. Next thing you know, Soren's goons have turned up to intimidate her further, and Bond gets involved and saves her and spends the night with her, but not in that way, to keep eye on her. And then she loses her job because presumably Sequel's been under pressure from Soren. Next thing she knows, she's helping Bond, or Stock, to go undercover into City Hall to get paperwork and that. Finds out Soren's there. Soren kills her boss, sets the place on fire. She gets rescued from a lift shaft by Bond off the roof of the building in one of the best scenes, best moments in a Bond film, largely because of John Barry's music. And ends up driving a fire engine out into Marin County. At least I think it's Marin County. After Bond does some stupid stuff on the fire engine. Cat that off. She's in and out of the mine and almost drowned and almost killed and kidnapped in an airship and messing about on top of the Golden Gate Bridge. And then all is dandy. And presumably she gets another job or something. But she was a real character. I think Tanya Roberts, though not the world's best actress, looked at the role probably and said, well, this is a normal girl pulled off the street. I mean, many Bond films, especially later films, seem to have had the character plucked from their regular day job like Christmas Jones, and they just get on with it. But Stacey was wide-eyed with fright in some of those things. I mean, she did, her day job as a state geologist. She has no bit. She was not waking up one day thinking it was going to end with her dangling off the Golden Gate Bridge, And then, of course, late 90s, around about 2000, me and my brothers got in somehow to the 70s show, which was being shown on our Channel 5. I think we watched Side in Season 2. And Tanya Roberts, by now, obviously, is a little bit older. She was, at least 45. My maths is really bad. Yeah, 45. And incredibly attractive, as always, especially in the Senate show. And she's playing the dumb blonde to the hilt. And but Midge on the Quiet was a nice little character. She was not the brightest. That was established. She was incredibly attractive, and the mum next door for Kelso and Eric and Hyde and the rest. But she was a feminist, and in an era when women were still rather second best in certain fields and certain areas, and Midge wanted to be her own woman and was inspiration probably to Donna. And then she had to leave the show. And I thought it's because, maybe Tanya Roberts had enough of playing a dumb blonde and you could only do that for so long. But it turned out it was for personal reasons relating to her husband's illness. She came back a couple of times. But sadly that was it. But after a while, unfortunately, the Sony show had lost some of its sting, I think. I saw her once in what is delicately described as an erotic thriller called Sins of Desire. That was the kind of thing she ended up doing around the time of Bond and after Bond. Obviously she was in Charlie's Angels, but I don't remember watching her episodes as such. I haven't really watched Charlie's Angels properly. I've seen the odd episode. Either way, it's a very sad loss. And the manner of which she's gone is even sadder, I think. One moment she's dead, she's alive, she's gone. I think it seems definitely unfortunately. And sadly, the world we live in involves social media, and there's a lot of rather tasteless comments that I've not seen personally, but I've heard about, and it's just not on. So this is to remember Tanya Roberts and for the deep impression she has left on me. Every few and a few to a kill when you first see her. There's like a thunderbolt moment. Few Bond women have had that effect. I think only Diana Riggan on the Majesty's Secret Service when I was young, and even now it still has that kind of clinking effect, and maybe Jane Seymour, Live and Let Die. But 65 is no age nowadays when you've got people living well into their 90s, even past 100. So she still had 20, 30 years ahead of her. Younger than my father and a little bit older than my mother. So rest in peace, and hopefully you chaps, if you are watching and listening, at least have something nice to say, because as my grandmother used to say, if you've got nothing nice to say, then don't say anything at all. But this is the internet, so fill your boots. Thanks very much.